Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. We're just going to wait a couple more minutes to let everybody log in, and we'll be back in just a couple of minutes. Thanks so much for waiting. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm just going to activate my video here. Hi. Um, Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Stephanie DeBishop. I'm the Executive Director of Plan Institute, And we are so thankful that you all took the time of your days to join us in this conversation, and this first conversation of a series of 5 that we're really excited to have with you. You know, the global situation has severely interrupted our traditional opportunities to connect with one another, and we felt that it was really imperative at this moment to reflect on what this means for our community, and more importantly, how we can work together to stay connected. And that's what we're all here to talk about together today and throughout this series. Just a quick note about Plan Institute and Plan. We're family-led and driven sister organizations, and we really focus on ensuring that everybody has the opportunity to live their best life. And while there are various elements to that, of course, one key aspect is being a part of and being connected to our community. And that's, of course, why what we're focusing on for this series. So just a couple of quick notes about today. You are all automatically muted when you came in. I saw a couple of questions already about that. And so please do feel free to use the chat function to ask any questions. We really want this to be a dialogue. And we'll be saving about the last 20 minutes or so to address questions. And we'd really love for you to be as engaged as you're interested in being. And we'd love for you to ask those questions in your own words. So if you're interested in us unmuting you so that you can ask yourself, please just raise your hand. There's a little function where you can raise your hand when posing a question, and it'll let us know that you're interested. And otherwise, we'd be happy to ask on your behalf. And if we're not able to answer your question directly, we'll be sure to grab your information and connect after the fact so we can address all questions if possible. So we will be sharing a link after the webinar to invite you to continue this discussion and throughout the series. And we'll post some guiding questions to get the discussion going. And then any additional resources or links will also be posted there. So we hope you'll join us to continue the conversation even beyond our time together today. One final note I just wanted to mention was that Plan Institute operates a free disability planning helpline, which can support questions on staying connected, the registered disability savings plan, disability tax credits, setting up trusts, estate planning, supported and empowered decision making, among other topics. So we'd really welcome your call, your friends, family, those who you support within your community. Please, connect with us if you have any questions. At the end of this webinar, you'll be automatically directed to a short and optional survey. No need, but within that survey, there's also a link or an opportunity for you to express interest. So if you'd like to have one of our advisors connect with you directly, just feel free to put your information in there and we'll be sure to reach out. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce the wonderful women that will be sharing their experiences, thoughts, expertise during the conversation today. So Rebecca Pauls is the Executive Director of Plan and has a broad range of experience in community development, person-centered planning, ABCD, narrative therapy, independent facilitation, you name it. And most importantly, Rebecca is committed to connecting people with other people and the places around them. And Rebecca will be joined by Shelley Messman for all 5 of the conversations in this series. And Shelley is Plan's Director of Family Support and Leadership and has really an incredible variety of experience as a facilitator and a planner, as well as a consultant in the field, and has been part of many organizations that are incredible community contributors. Shelley really is a believer in the power of deeply listening to someone and supporting them to, identify and express their gifts. And we are so happy that today we are welcoming Karen Lai and Risha Burke, who will be joining the conversation. Karen is an independent consultant in accessibility and inclusion and has worked for over 20 years in the field with businesses, service providers, you name it, all to increase the accessibility and inclusion of people with disabilities. And finally, last but not least, Risha is the Director of Community Development and Supports with Community Living Brant and has worked as a social planner, a health promoter, community developer in various neighborhoods throughout Ontario. And we're thrilled to have all of these voices share in the conversation today. So with that, I will pass it off to you, Rebecca.
Great. Thanks so much, Steph. And hi, everyone. We're so glad that you joined us today. It's great to be connected this way. And it would be way better if we were all in a room and we could see each other and talk and maybe have a cup of coffee. But I'm just so glad that through the technology that we have, we can spend some time together and have this conversation. Like Steph was talking about, I think it was hard enough to stay connected to our friends and our relationships before the COVID-19 pandemic happened. So now that there's so many limitations in the physical distancing that we need to do, it's become even harder. And at Plan and with so many people and families, we've been talking about ways that we can stay connected during this time. So today we wanted to bring together some of the people who've also been thinking about this a lot. And one of the big lessons that we've learned already is that we don't need to wait to be asked. That means that if we have an idea that will help someone else, if we confidently do that, it will make a really big difference. And I think all of us have ideas of things we want to do, or maybe someone pops into our head. If we don't wait to be asked, if we just pick up the phone and put action to those ideas, that's one way that we can stay connected. And another big piece of this is sharing what we need and want with other people, to give them the opportunity to work together for us to stay connected during this time. So today, Karen and Shelley and Risha are joining us, and each of them have a different spin on the thought of staying connected and not waiting to be asked. And I think that you'll enjoy the stories and the thoughts that they share with you. So we'll spend a little bit of time doing that, and then towards the end of our time together, there'll be a chance for you to ask questions or join in the conversation. So again, thanks so much for being here, and I'll turn it over to Shelley and you, Karen, to share a little bit about what you're thinking about these days.
Thanks, Rebecca. Karen, don't forget to unmute yourself. I already almost forgot. Hi, everybody. It's such a pleasure to be here. I am honored to be just sharing this space with everyone and holding this conversation, which is pretty important. It's been a lifelong journey for me around understanding the ins and outs of asking and our vulnerability. And Karen, you and I have gotten into some great conversations about this, especially lately. I wanted to thank you as my friend, and also as really a mentor for me. I wanted to thank you for today and for all the past conversations we've had. And the last time we were talking, you said something that really struck me, and you said help. The word help is a loaded word. And I wonder if we could start our conversation just by talking about that.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, Shelley and I've been having great conversations about help in terms of in all times, especially in the pandemic, and for a person with a lived experience of disability, it's quite, people assume that we all need help, and that people with disabilities need help even more. And help is such an interesting word because it's very loaded with so many different layers, because if you ask for help, you are actually letting people know that you are vulnerable. You need the assistance of others because you can't do it alone. But so it actually opens up your vulnerability in so many different ways. And then for other people, it is like, oh, of course you ask for help. You are a person with disabilities. So you kind of re-emphasizing the stereotype that they already have on you.
Yeah, it really took a lot of time just to think about that, because the thing I also know in my own life is that none of us does very much in our lives. We don't achieve our dreams. We don't, achieve our goals. We don't just live our day-to-day life alone. And
Yeah.
so oftentimes we need people, well, most of the time we need people. And so when you think about that idea that, all of us are sort of, I guess, finding the balance between doing things on our own and also opening it up and opening up our own vulnerabilities. What kinds of things have helped you to, not to use a loaded word, but what kinds of things have helped you to reach out to do, sort of to go against your conditioning in some sense?
Well, totally, because help is also a two-way street. You have to accept help in a graceful way, and also be able to give help. It's reciprocal in so many actions that we do. But we all need help in so many different ways. Help is a good thing. How many of us have phoned a friend for advice? Some people need help with groceries. Some people need help with basic errands. How do we determine what is greater help that is needed? Of course, because you are a person with disabilities or not. Like, how do we measure the amount of help that everyone needs? We can't measure it, right? We all live in an interconnected society and a community of friends, support network that that we need. Yeah. So what helped me in the long and short version is that being, as a person with a lived box of labeling disabilities, it because we all know that we can't change others. We can only change our own perception of what we deemed as a box of a disability. So how do I shift my perceptions of my own lived experience? Whether it's from my ability level or limitations. We all have limitations, and we all have abilities. We all are humans, and we all need, so it's being confident in my own abilities and my own limitations to be able to ask for help. Because if I don't acknowledge my own limitation and my own abilities, I know that people will want to overhelp. And that, to me, demoralizes me. So if I have the control of what help needs, then it's the power dynamics thing.
What you're making me think about is this idea of, to be vulnerable, to really be courageous in our vulnerability. That probably the number one thing to do is to know ourselves first. And be comfortable in ourselves. So I love that that idea, and giving that great thought to what do I need, and have some clarity about it, really, so that when you are saying I need some help, people know what you're asking for, what help you're asking for.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, there's no shame in disability. There's no shame in limitation. It's just your life, period. So this being confident and knowing what you can and cannot do and going with it, you know?
Yeah. Were you going to say something else?
No, you go. I'll let you go.
Oh, this is so much fun to work out. Just the thinking about it. My own experience. I've worked for about almost 40 years, and I've done a lot of planning with people and families. And my experience often has been that when people are hesitant to ask, but then they do ask, could you help me with this? Could you support me or my son or daughter to do this thing? Most people who are asked are saying, really with relief, I've just been waiting for a way in. And, I haven't known how to. I've been waiting, maybe respectfully or just not knowing, or I've seen you trying to do everything. And so I just didn't know the way in. And I'm wondering if that's been a part of your experience as well, or if you have some stories about how people have really been like that it's worked really well when you asked for help and got some support.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a tough balance on both ends. When to ask for help, when to offer, and you do not want to offend anyone in terms of asking or offering help.
Yeah.
But I know when I go kayaking every summer and I spell out what I need for support, and that gives us a clear picture about how successful my trip will be, and how and giving comfort to the kayak company that I will be well supported. And it's like during these pandemic times where not often we order takeout, and quite often when the thing that really bugs me is ordering food over the phone. And I can remember one example where I had to say, please don't give us any more chopsticks, because we have plenty of chopsticks. And she couldn't understand me. So it was like 5 minutes over the phone of it saying chopstick, and I finally gave my phone over to my friend to let them order.
Right.
And yeah, that shouldn't have been needed, but that's the reality of life, is that I may need help with something, and I thought nothing of it, because I know that's one of my limitations. Be it negative, be it positive, who cares?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, it's a great example also, just thinking about situationally, someday it's what hill will I sort of die on here, and so and I guess the last thing I want to say before we wrap up, because I think our time is up for our conversation. Wow. I know. But I do feel like right now with the world today, all of us are feeling quite helpless. And so the more we can support one another, even just to sit confidently, right, about asking or knowing what you need or knowing what you want, it feels almost like we're getting more of an opportunity right now to practice. Yeah.
And it's self-acceptance of yourself, knowing what you need, and it's hugely vulnerable to ask for help, but we need each other during this time more than ever.
Agreed. Yeah. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks so much, Karen and Shelley, for sharing such nice self-reflection and some very practical things to think about. And Karen, you made a comment, you said there's no shame in our abilities and our limitations, and this is our life. And it really struck me when you talk about self-acceptance and when we can recognize who we are and what we need to work together with other people. I really appreciate that lesson. So thank you so much for doing that. And I also am so glad that Risha, you're here on the call with us and talking with you over the past several weeks. I've heard so many stories from you about ways that other people have been able to support you in your life, in your neighborhood, also some of the work that's happening in the work that you do. And so I was hoping that you could share some of those stories with our whole group, stories of times that people haven't waited to be asked, that they've confidently shared their big ideas, and maybe times that people have received and not expected it. So I'll just turn it over to you to share some stories.
Sure, thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here, and thanks Karen and Shelley, that was great. I work here in Brantford in Ontario, and we have this wonderful friend here named Gary, who I think it's my first story. He is a big library goer. So every single week, Gary made his way to the local public library. And when he got there, he would take all these videos because he doesn't have a lot of kind of connections at his apartment in terms of Wi-Fi and internet and all of that kind of stuff. So he's a big movie lover. So that was really important for him to be able to have. So he would watch. And so of course we have a pandemic and the library is closed. And so Gary was musing about what would he do. He was going to be really bored really quick. So he spent some time talking with some folks. He reached out and said, I'm going to need a little bit of help here. And he said, what would it be like if people donated some books or some videos to me, and I could then share them out. So he said, I'm not really sure how I would do that. How do I get that? So some folks at Community Brant here said we could help put a little post out and let people know that we're looking for movies. And so Gary got a donation of 200 movies. When I talked to him the other day, he was on I think he'd watched 150 of them. And as he watches them, he then he categorizes them in terms of the genres, and then with some help, he then delivers them with a little sort of a comment on them to other folks who are also feeling kind of bored in isolation and who enjoy movies. So he's been sharing those, which is exciting. And then he has a plan for when all of this is over, some agencies that he'll donate those to. So, just an idea that would help himself, but then he was like, there'll be other people in the same boat. So Gary was, really happy to do that. And a huge response from the community. And he's feeling really good about that. Sort of a little idea that kind of got big with a little bit of social media help. I was also just thinking about a wonderful young gentleman that we know who likes to be outside all the time, and he loves to fish, and he's been enjoying learning how to fish, so he's asked for help in learning how to do that. And his friend Kirk said, let's go out and explore what's available, knowing physical distancing is important, and we need to find places and spaces that are okay. We need to learn the rules about fishing. Is there anything different during COVID that we need to know about? Anyway, so they went out and they've been exploring. This young gentleman, Joel, has been learning more about fishing. And so they thought, we should probably make a video and share that out so we can share all the awesome fishing spots. And so they made an amazing video that they've shared out, and it has been seen by a lot of people. So they have plans actually to think about all of the other passions that Joel has to share it with people. So he's been doing, just to help his neighbors. He just loves to stack wood. He has a neighbor who has a fireplace. So he's been gathering wood and sorting that out for his neighbor, not being asked if he just sort of said, I'd like to do this, can I help you? And his neighbor's like, absolutely. So yeah, so that's sort of another kind of neat story. Again, asked for a little bit of help to make it happen, but really letting his own passion and interests shine through. So we've been really enjoying what Joel has been doing and learning from him. Just thinking about my own life in my own neighborhood. I'm really involved in our neighborhood association. Give it a shout out, North Burlington Community Association in Burlington, Ontario. And we have been, we've been pretty active for the last 8 years. Actually, this Wednesday is our 8th birthday party. And we're doing it by video. But we've been meeting by Zoom, and we've been doing some community cooking, and that's been helping people in the community. But I have a friend who lives in the neighborhood, and she's always sort of tried to figure out how to be involved. Has always frequently asked me how to get involved, and so I just was doing a front porch chit chat with her, and I said, hey, we're thinking of brainstorming some new ideas for the neighborhood. And she is a ECE and a really passionate person about children in general. And so she had an idea around doing some craft kits for kids. We've been delivering, food gets delivered to folks who are in the shelter, living in the hotels right now in Burlington, and they needed plates for the food they were receiving. And we thought, wow, what about all those kids that are in the hotels? What if we did craft kits? And so this woman, she said, I can totally get behind this. And so we, again, used some social media and just put out a call to neighbors for all their bits and bobs of craft supplies. And you could drop them off on our front porches. And literally every time I walked out of my house, there was another mound of construction paper and cotton balls and glue sticks and all sorts of this and that. And so that was really exciting. And so then Tracy has been taking them and putting them into, using gloves, filling up Ziploc bags, and we have labels on them, which my friend Shaz uses her skill to do, and puts together this sort of a board and buster kit for kids that have gone to the shelter. But we have lots of them. We have more than we ever dreamt of. So now we're actually delivering them to our free little library sort of friends in our area to give out with books, and to some of the neat Facebook folks that are out there doing, just some sort of really neat things in the community as an add-on. So citizens helping other citizens to give to their neighborhoods. And honestly, we spent zero money, and it's all been like things that people have around their house to give away. But I think what's sort of neat is often as a community developer and someone who's a bit of a community organizer in our own neighborhood, I'm often giving to people. And recently in our family, we had a family loss. And my friend Tracy, who often, excuse me, has looked to me as someone who would help her, was just so gracious in helping me. And so I just was really relating to Karen as she was talking earlier about that vulnerability. And Tracy just really stepped in for me to help me during our family's time of need. Beyond the meals that she delivered, she said, this craft kit thing is kind of gotten big and quick. And it's why don't I come and empty the box out of your off your front porch, and I'll take care of it, and I'll take over all those emails and correspondence while your family takes care of the things that you need to right now. So that vulnerability for me was a really important thing for me to lean into, and for Tracy to step up. And it's just been really neat to see her just blossom in her, as I received help. She gave the help that she needed to give, and just her gifts. I almost cried last night when we were at our Zoom meeting planning out next steps. Her gift and her love and her passion for children is just shining through. So it's been really exciting. Yeah.
Wow, Risha, thank you so much for those stories. It's amazing to see the boldness and people not waiting to be asked. And I love the story of the wood pile. And I hope that these things never end. I've also noticed in my own life, people are being more bold to reach out or to jump on a call and get to know each other differently. And we have a few more minutes to chat. And I just wonder if you have any thoughts on how do we make sure that we keep this going? In a lot of our cities and provinces, the physical distancing requirements are lifting a little bit. We have a little bit more freedom. And I know for myself, I don't want to lose that boldness. I don't want to lose that commitment to helping each other and to living that life cooperatively. And I just wondered if just off the top of your head, you have thoughts about how we make sure we don't lose this momentum that we're building.
Yeah, I've thought a lot about this recently, actually. It's sort of been almost hurting my head because I want this to end and I don't want it to end. And I've been really torn on that, Rebecca, because I feel like we're learning so much, or we have the chance to learn so much about ourselves, and to go beyond. I think our automatic reaction, and I think this is the enduring piece, is even with our neighborhood association, our automatic reaction first was to do those things that I would put in like a charity kind of column, like, helping those who are very vulnerable, women and children that live in a shelter and they're stuck in a hotel, and that's awful, and we should continue to do those things. But really starting to have those conversations around that we're all in a bit of a crisis, and that citizens helping citizens, and that neighborliness piece, I feel like that's the ongoing, enduring piece that, at least in my community, we needed to practice, to be honest. Those bold steps of having people drop things off on your porch doesn't seem like a really big deal, but felt really bold for some people. But I think that helping neighbor piece, and thinking about your next door neighbor. I often think about if we all just knew, like the person on the other side and the two people across the street, and we knew more than sort of like the stickers on the back of their van, like that's a soccer family and they like Star Wars and they've been to Disney, kind of, I don't know, maybe that's not a Vancouver thing, but it's an Ontario thing. But if we knew sort of a little bit about their gifts, and what sort of makes them tick, and what just makes them happy, and we kind of leaned into that a little bit more, that I think would take us a long way, because it would be then together that we would be able to then further reach out to those who are more vulnerable than ourselves, possibly, but that change of culture piece. So I again, I don't want this pandemic to keep going, but at the same time, I hope that we're taking the time to really think about that and learn from the situation.
Yeah. I can understand what you're saying. And I know when we talk about staying connected and building more connected communities outside of the pandemic, we often use stories of crises or disaster situations when people come together and get to know their neighbors. And being in a time like this is our chance to build those connections, to get to know our neighbors, to reach out and like you said, practice.
Yeah, exactly.
Why is it that it's so hard to ring someone's doorbell or pick up the phone and say, I've been thinking about you? But there's all kinds of reasons that make it hard for us. So I'm glad that we're having this conversation. And I know there's more than 100 other people on this call with us, and I'm so excited to hear some thoughts that people have or questions that they have. So I'm going to invite Stephanie to come back, who's going to help us with the questions, and Karen and Shelley will come back on the screen, and we'll finish our time together with just a broader discussion and maybe some stories of your own lives.
Hi, thank you so much. That was such a wonderful conversation, and I'm so thankful that we were all able to be a part of it. Thank you so much for sharing. And there's been some great questions that have popped up. Thank you so much to everybody who's been sharing their thoughts and perspectives. There are a few here that maybe I'll just fire away and share, and let's start to address some of these. So there were a lot of questions, and this was sort of coming up when Shelley and Karen, where you were having our conversation, a lot of questions about the balancing act, of sort of asking for help while maintaining your dignity. And wondering if you might be able to sort of reflect on that challenge and how we can articulate our needs and asking for help while still recognizing and honoring our own feelings that come along with making that ask and the vulnerability that that it brings alongside it.
Do you want me to attack it? I think everyone has a story. Everyone knows their own lives. So articulate and inadequate. You get doubted. I know my own life so well. So lived experience. But yeah, it is a tough balancing act because there's so many layers. Help is so heavy loaded. I mean, if you receive help, it makes a difference in the power dynamic. Who is helping who? And you as a person with a lived experience, at least for me, I do not want to be the one always receiving help. It's leveling that power dynamic. And of course, everyone brings a level of privileges in your identity level. Like, so, and it's like Shelly and I were saying yesterday on a phone call, like, if I help her, there would be questions asked. But if she helps me, there would be no question asked. Because I have a physical disability. Do everyone? I need help. So it's for me to recognize that there's some societal barriers that I need to face, or like I could care less what they think because I'm 45 and I don't really care. Or like so it's recognizing what I want to portray outside and internally. It's that whole ableism thing. Yeah.
Can I just add, I just want to add one thing, and it's more likely my privilege showing up, but I love the work of Brené Brown, and she talks about vulnerability. One of the really important things about embracing our vulnerability is to let go of perfection and to seek excellence, actually, is what she talks about. And so my willingness to muck around and not be perfect is also leads me to a different place around the balancing act of, asking for help. It does.
So another question, and on the topic of, asking for help and wanting to offer help. If somebody, there were some questions around people wanting to reach out to offer help and not really being sure as to how to do so in a way that honors that economy that Karen, you were just sort of addressing, and Shelly. So do you have any thoughts or suggestions on how somebody can begin to reach out with confidence in that offering, and they're doing so with the, honoring both their perspective and the perspective of the person who they are offering help to?
I think it depends on your relationship between the person. My close friends know how to help me, so I don't even have to ask. So I think it depends on how you build the relationship. And the thing that really takes me up is being outside in a grocery store, and I happen to buy my groceries from No Frills, where you have to pack your own bags. And quite often I'm quite slow and I hold up the line, so I get offered help and I get ticked off about that because who determines how fast people go? Who determines who's slow? What is the line of slow and fast? They're all, but like if someone who I know quite closely offers me help, sure. If Beverly, if they offer to wash my dishes, sure.
I would just simply add that when I'm offering help, I just check, why am I offering? So if I'm offering help to say, to make you hurry up, it's one thing, right? I'm not going to be graceful in how I offer it. But if I really check in my heart, I would say, don't wait. If you're considering, you know, stepping out and offering something, do it. And, you know, if you do it from your heart, then, and a person says no, well, we just got to learn how to say no this time as an answer. Take no as an answer, and you know, offer again when it's appropriate or the right timing.
I was gonna, can I just add, just thinking from a community development perspective, and I don't know if this fits, but I'm just thinking, you know, just listening to you really remind me of like sort of that quadrant of often we find ourselves in institution doing things to people, which is, you know, not good. And then sometimes it's for people. And so that can be that help that, you know, maybe that's marginal. And then there's like doing stuff with people, which is, you know, nicer. And often we feel satisfied when we get in that sort of that space. But I know, you know, listening to a speaker by the name of Cormac Russell from Ireland, he talks a lot about the buy space, right? That last part of that sort of a quadrant. And there it's like saying, what do you want to do? And how can I help you do that? And so it's completely directed by by folks, by neighbors, by our friends, by, you know, people that we're saddling up alongside with, you know, to get something done in community or just wherever. But it's, you know, just empowering folks in that space, but it's really all about helping them do things by themselves. But it's what does that support look like? And that has lots of qualifications, I think, in terms of lots of categories around how you help someone in the buy space.
Mm-hmm. And Karen, it stood out to me that you started saying, my friends know what I need, and we just help each other. We identify it, we're close enough, we notice, and we do it. And for me, that reminds me of the importance of having deep friendships and relationships with each other. During the pandemic, it's a bit different. Maybe we are a little bit more bold in saying, do you need this? I'm going to the grocery store, can I pick up something for you? But living in a culture that shares what's important to us in our hearts and what we're thinking builds that relationship. So when we are offering help or asking for help, it's just who we are. It's the way we show up and the way that we decide to live life together.
Yeah. And the two-way street, right? We've got to offer it gracefully, and we've got to accept it gracefully.
Yeah. Reciprocity, right? Like.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
I've got here, if you'll bear with me, Kim has a great question that I would love to invite you to ask with your own voice. And let me just find you here to unmute you. Okay. Kim, can you, are you able to speak and share your question in your own words?
Sure, well, those were my words. I think I've been watching the news closely about the kinds of things that have been exposed in seniors care homes through COVID-19 and the appalling things that have emerged. None of us who've been part of the advocacy movement are the least bit surprised, but I'm wondering what else might have been illuminated by COVID with respect to the challenges of connection between us, and as a consequence, what advocacy is required to attend to that in terms of isolation and a lack of belonging. This conversation has been part of my DNA for as long as it's been for yours, Shelley. So, and we're still talking about it. So what are we supposed to do now to move the needle because of COVID and hang on to this? I really heard your comment, Risha, about I want it to end, I don't want it to end. For me, I'm terrified that we're just going to go back to what we were doing before. So I think we've got lessons. I also think there's some advocacy, and I'm just intrigued by what you think the next thing we have to do is.
I'm happy to say some words about that, Kim. I really appreciate the question, and thanks for bringing that into our conversation. And the one thing that's been illuminated for me is the opportunity for people with disabilities and families and organizations and government to work together in a coordinated way. I hear about 17 different committees who are working on emergency plans for people with disabilities or for other sectors. And when we can come together, all of us who care about the same thing, and work together in a coordinated way, then we can be more effective and quicker. And also share the information in clear and transparent ways to everyone who's affected by it. And that's definitely something that we've been practicing during this pandemic. And like you say, your fear of going back to normal, I see that in my neighborhood already with bars and pubs full of people, and how quickly it seems that some forget. And I think that holding on, like we talked about originally, to this boldness and this deep realization that we need each other and that we know how to care for each other. But then again, from an advocacy perspective, as we move into recovery times, and there's still a lot outside of health, especially in terms of financial stability for people with disabilities, that I often wonder if our hardest work is yet to come. So the illuminated lesson is work together quickly and provide transparent communication so as many people as possible can be involved. Thank you.
Hi, so there's a lot of conversation happening, and so appreciate it. One question that popped up is trying to determine that balance between when someone's asking, when in this particular scenario, somebody's asking if their child asks for support or assistance, having trouble navigating when is the time to say, absolutely, I will help, and when's the time to say, actually, I think that you've got this. So what are your thoughts on maintaining that balance?
It's a really tough balance, because I'm not a parent myself, but I can certainly empathize with the parents, and that you see your kid struggling and you want to help so bad, but because you want to see your kid succeed. But when a perfect time to step in? Is there a perfect time to step in? Because as we all know, we learn from mistakes. We learn if we fall down. And, you know, I can remember from my own lived experience, I got bullied a lot when I was a kid. Like I was learning new things. I was bullied and and when I was 7, I remember crying to my parents saying this happened at school. And the best advice my mom gave me was keep a stiff upper lip and move on. Work double as hard. You're going to face this for the rest of your life. Keep a stiff upper lip and move on. That's the best advice that my parents could give. And they let me suffer. They let me make mistakes. And it's a real difficult because you don't want to overcompensate for your kid. I don't know the answer to that. I really don't know. But if it takes you 5 hours to spread a toast with peanut butter, then it's going to take you 5 hours. And then next week, it will take you 4 hours. And then, practice. I don't know what the answer to when to step in. Parents, do you know?
Well, it's really two conversations, isn't it? I mean, around, certainly around our kids and sort of as we're learning to be independent in the world. And also, it just strikes me, Karen, you do have such a clear sense of yourself, which again, lets you know, okay, I'm at my threshold. I need to ask for some help. So, your experiences allowed you to know what your quote limitations are. And so that you're more effective at, taking help when it's offered or knowing when you need to ask for help. And I kind of get this, I have my mom and my dad in my mind, both, and they're both passed, but they're arguing because they would have completely different answers about when to ask for help. So for me, it's really situational for each person. And
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So we have one question around, and maybe Risha, this might be something for you, but in families that are really struggling with their inability to be together right now, there was one mother who shared that she is separated from her 2 adult sons that live in another community, and they've been unable to see one another, of course, because of this situation. And naturally, they miss each other desperately. And how can we, do you have any tips or thoughts, or how can we continue to stay connected when we are feeling such heavy hearts through this physical distance? And do you have any thoughts or ideas on how we can continue to stay connected with those that we are physically apart from right now?
Oh, I think that's the question of the pandemic for me. We've Community Living Brand, we've been Zooming a lot. I feel like I live in a time portal, but we've been helping folks to use Zoom to connect with their family. I was actually spending a little bit of time with a lovely gentleman that we support this morning, and we were just talking about how much more his family lives away and doesn't see them as much as he'd like in regular times. But it's been interesting how the COVID situation has made him reach out more to his family now, and he's talking to them on the phone on such a regular basis. It's actually been, I said, what's the best thing that has come out of COVID? And that he just said, I talk to my family more. which I think is really interesting. He said, I know their number, I pick up the phone and I call. And they're having so many more conversations. And so it's a phone call, like it's low tech, but it has meant sort of a great deal to people. And we have other folks who have gone back to, just been watching, people have gone back to letter writing. I like it's, everything old is new again, right? And just to actually snail mail people, like actually craft a letter and put it in the mail, and what an incredible surprise. And then the conversation that happens after that, with the phone call, I got your letter, a letter in the mail, and how exciting it is. My kids are like, even my house is like, we got mail. Someone wrote a letter to my 14-year-old the other day, and I can't remember the last time I got a letter in the mail. So I think there are some really simple things that we can do. But it is hard. Like, how do you share when we're apart? And I think I saw the comments, like it's like you're physically distant, and like the connection to get there is not even there. I think that was maybe a comment around the ferries and all of those things out west. So yeah, but it always comes down, and Karen said it earlier, it's all about relationship, right? And so the phone, if you have the technology, I don't know if that's an issue for people, but the Zoom, or there's other platforms, FaceTime, people have been successfully doing that. We've been connecting, helping friends to connect. For those who are a little bit closer, we've seen some pretty cool like van visits. So just drive up. You can't be close by, but you can drive up in a van and sit in the van and do some porch drops. Our family group and some of the families that we've really been missing through our respite programs, which we haven't been able to run, has been heartbreaking. And so we recently, actually just this past week, drove to all 50 houses and dropped off something on their porches and stood at the end of the driveway to kind of shout our love to them. And I think for the staff who work for us, it was probably just as good for their hearts as it was for the families, but it's been crushing. So I don't know if that's helpful, but yeah, mail. We've also done some videos too, so that people could see each other. We've made some kind of silly videos about being together well apart. And it is so fun to see the comments around just how amazing it is to see people's faces. We did a silly one where we threw an airplane through the screens and it all connected. And then we did one where we were all holding hands recently. And families are loving at least seeing a face on video.
And I realized, I just looked at the time and I realized that we are at the end of our time together, and that flew by. And so I just wanted to say thank you so much to all of you who are on the line, in front of your computers, on the phone, that joined the conversation. Thank you to, of course, our contributors for today, Rebecca, Shelley, Risha, Karen. Lovely as always, and we really hope that you all enjoyed the conversation. Just a reminder, this is the first of a 5-part series, and they'll be occurring every week, same time, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 Eastern, and they will be happening for 5 weeks in a row, so we really do hope that you'll join us again. The next one will be on June 2nd. And just a reminder, please check your junk mail. I will be sending a follow-up email with a link to how you can stay connected to us, to our disability planning helpline, for anybody who would like to reach out and connect. The discussion forum that we mentioned previously, really feel free to connect. We're eager to keep this conversation going. So until the next time, we hope we'll speak to you all again next week. And until then, stay safe and stay connected, everyone.
Take care.
Bye.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I think that all participants have.
Yes, they have. Yes,
Sorry,
I cleaned out the last stragglers.
Yeah.
So I've stopped sharing and I'll pause recording.